Hello.
Hi! Welcome to Cambodia.
We're already in Cambodia, but we're now in a new island called Korong.
No, we welcome you to Cambodia.
And yeah, it's beautiful. We've been here for a few days. It's a lot more relaxed, lower standard, wood bungalow, amazing view, quiet, natural, peaceful.
So natural. Oh, it has really beautiful beaches and much less businesses everywhere, which
There's
is kinda
less
nice.
to do, but at the same time, it's good. So it forces us to just reset and focus on the basic value, healing, eating some good food, and connecting with each other, with nature, and sharing with you.
Yeah. So, T, what is our topic for today?
I don't know, I just got inspired. I had it in my thought this morning when I was doing my practice. And then I just had a flashback of those YouTube video where there's a person, usually a vegan militantist, who has a table and has a sign saying vegan is the best way of living, prove me wrong. And then you have the opportunity to sit with that person and talk and discuss and change their mind if they can, and you're on camera. And yes, I wanted to talk about it. I don't know, it's just one of the first idea that came to my mind. Jordan's been a vegan pretty much 99% for the last 7 years at least, and
Probably,
vegetarian
around
for many more years before that. And I labeled myself as a vegan for also 7 years, and even more deeply I went to raw vegan for 5 years within that, and only fruit for 2 years, and even just fruit juice for almost half of that time. But for the last 3 years, I've reintegrated meat more and more, and now, unless I'm meeting with Jordan on their strength, usually I eat meat most of the every day. And it was there's people. The reason why I want to bring this up is because there's people who are like hardcore vegan, and they just don't hate people. They just don't hate the idea of eating meat, and everyone else who does eat meat. And
You're saying they do hate the people
yeah,
who eat meat. Okay.
there's a militantist, meaning that they're just close to the idea that it's okay or accepted that some people are still need or believe they still need to eat meat to sustain themselves. And there's people who are a lot more moderate, like you, Jordan, which you're doing it for yourself. You have good value, either if it's for the environment, for your health, or for protecting the well-being of animals. But at the same time, you don't hate and do not have any problem to interact and even date people who are not vegan like yourself. And yeah, we can go first with why you think vegan is important to you, and then go more deeply into the debate of the more militantist part of veganism.
Well, I can definitely resonate with the more strict, hardcore mosquitoes. We have to hunt
Yeah,
them.
we're starting late.
Speaking of veganism, murder of
Oops.
mosquitoes.
I don't mind.
Yeah, so I definitely experienced more of my life where I felt much more, my perspective, I felt entitled to share this knowledge with other people. And
Forcefully.
Are you the one that told me this? Or the quote? It's a quote where it's like teaching others when they don't want to be taught. No, I think it's Ram Dass who shared it, but it's a quote.
It's probably the same. Me and Randas or share. He's quoting me.
He's quoting you. Okay. And it was teaching others when they don't want to be taught is a crime or an act
Suffering.
against humanity. No, not suffering. Like it's like an actual crime. And so I think of this in terms of like when I was becoming vegan and even just vegetarian.
Anti-vegan movement.
Yeah, super anti-vegan. I felt the responsibility to share with family, friends, mainly my parents, being around them so much at this time. I changed my lifestyle when I was still living at home, so I felt this responsibility to kind of be like, how do you not see that you're going to be affecting your body by putting in the energy of something that's suffered? So for me, what caused me to switch is like, I wanted to be vegetarian for a long time. When I was
Because you were brought up within the family that just eat meat as a staple food.
yeah, it was just like, I mean, every meal had meat in it, and I cared so much for animals, but it was, my parents didn't like to cook a lot, so there wasn't much of a range for me to just like, oh well, I just won't add this to my meal. So I actually was vegetarian for 1 month before I actually committed to it, and that was years and years before. And I remember, it's funny, it goes hand in hand with being so militant about your diet, is it was going great. After 1 month, my dad asked me if I wanted spaghetti for dinner, and I said yes. And then I ate the spaghetti, and I mentioned something about like, well, I'm like, this is being pretty easy being vegetarian afterwards. And he was like, you're still vegetarian? And I was like, yeah, what do you mean? And he was like, oh, I cooked your spaghetti with the meat sauce, which is like, I had let my whole family know. I was super committed to it. All the
And
thoughts
you didn't
went,
notice at first.
I didn't notice because it would like, I didn't know any difference, and it wasn't like giant meat pieces in there. They were like just minced and mixed in there. And all the thoughts went through my head like, okay, I should
tomato
go.
delicious.
I wonder now how I didn't really notice the difference, but genuinely noticed no difference. Didn't think about it. And I thought like maybe I should make myself throw up, or like, how can I get back this purity?
From vegan to bulimic.
Yeah, there you go. It's a gateway drug. But it was I felt this loss of purity, and it was that made me stop being vegetarian afterwards. It's because I felt like I had lost so much progress, and I just felt so impure afterwards. I didn't stick with it after that. And then a few years later, I returned to it, and this, I mean, was because I actually felt the emotional connection to the animal, which was the first time I'd ever felt it, first and only time. And I couldn't keep eating it. It was chicken, and I felt the animal didn't want to die, but I couldn't waste its body. And for me, that's what brought me on this more personal commitment to not participate in the suffering of animals, which of course led me to a really beautiful space of like being really conscious about what I consume and what I use. But it also brought me to a place of like entitlement of what other people are consuming and using, and not being able to have an integrated perspective of the whole system. For instance, you went from eating fruit to eating meat again. Can you I know the story, but for those who don't, like, you want to share?
I mean, I won't. I don't think I want to tell the whole story, but in short, in 2012, it was the beginning of my spiritual journey. A really strong, powerful event. We're gonna get over now.
Yeah.
It's a anti-vegan movement happening right now.
Fuck, there's
Should we just?
there's like 20, 30 all around. Okay, see you later.
We're coming back in a different landscape. This is beautiful, but we can stay here. Hello, we're back. It's the same video, but another day, same location. We just we just started filming at the wrong time. When the mosquitoes started inviting us, we were left to only run away. So to answer the question back about my journey to veganism, I labeled myself as a vegan for 7 years, until from 2012 to 2019. And you wanted to ask me why I started and then why it eventually ended. So it started not because I wanted to. Like, there's many reasons why most people become vegan, either for health, desertification, or cruelty against animal or the environment. And as much as I've studied in the environment, so I'm really conscientious about the environment. It was never the main reason why I turned vegan. It's actually not a choice. It happened as a result of me going into my first meditation retreat in 2012. I went in the mountain for, it was supposed to be 3 weeks, but I ended up staying only 15 days. 1 week decreasing food, 1 week full fast, and I was supposed to restart eating food again for a week before returning, but there's a storm collapsed my refuge, and then I just ate like a meal or two, and then I had to retry because I kind of felt it was the end, and also nature telling me that I shouldn't be there anymore. And when I came back to town where I was living in Canada, the first reflex is because I lost, I think, 24 pounds in that time. And my goal was just to regain, it was just an experience, and I didn't thought anything more about after that experience. I just thought, okay, wow, this is an accomplishment. I had a huge revelation. But after that, my friend were really scared that I lost so much weight quickly. And my girlfriend was out of town for 5 weeks. And that was at the beginning, so I wanted to gain as much weight as possible before she returned, so I wouldn't scare her. And as I restarted eating a lot of meat, fat, and just like trying to gain weight, I feel really ill, and probably because it's not recommended to eat a lot. Ill. It's not really recommended to eat heavy food, fat food after a long fast. At the time I had zero knowledge about how the right way to fast, and so all I wanted is to follow what my mind wanted, and I wanted to gain weight, so I went with bacon, avocado, 10% yogurt, everything to gain weight quickly. And then for at least a whole month I tried, and I just felt really ill. and also before that I smoked weed for 15 years every day straight, and after the retreat I stopped for the retreat, and after the retreat I just wanted to restart smoking, and for some reason I just felt really ill. I felt really sick, so I just naturally stopped after a couple of weeks. So I stopped smoking right then and stopped eating meat. And I stopped for around 7 years and a half. And through that 7 years and a half, I just went into, eventually I went deeper into this journey of listening to what my body wanted. And I think a year or two after, I was in India and realized that actually, I'm not sure of all the steps, but I realized quickly, I think a year after I ended up eating only raw vegan, and so I was eating fruit and vegetable, and eventually I was in India, and it was so warm that all my vegetables would rot away throughout the day, so I just stopped buying them, and I forgot, and after a month I realized, like, wait a minute, I think I haven't bought or eat vegetable for like over a month, and I just like this slowly never wanted like from the mind, but just realized that I was fine by eating less and just accepted the new diet as my new staple diet.
New diet being fruit.
Well, first vegan, then raw vegan. So in total I was vegan 7.5 years, raw vegan 5 years within that, just eating fruit for 2 years at least, and within that drinking only fruit juice for up to like 9 or 10 months.
But when you were in India and you realized your vegetables were going bad, what were you eating?
I was raw vegan already.
So no, but you made a transition from eating vegetables to
eating only fruits.
Okay.
Because at such heat, and I didn't have a fridge, and I wouldn't want, I was so focused on my spiritual journey that I would want to stay in the ashram for like up to like a week at a time without getting out of the ashram. And I didn't want to eat carb with, like in India, it's really easy in the ashram, they serve you rice, dal and chapati for really cheap, as much as you want, and I just didn't want to eat, my body didn't feel to eat cooked food for a long time, and moreover not heavy food anymore. So I was not eating traditional Indian food anymore. I was just eating fresh, raw fruit and vegetable for already like I guess 2 or 3 years, and also nuts and seed, by the way. But because they're expensive, eventually they went out of my diet, mainly because I couldn't afford them. And yeah, when I started eating fruit only, it just every time I made a step toward purifying my diet, it came not because I wanted it, just because I realized I didn't need it, and it felt right at the moment. It felt right, and accordingly, I after India, I went back to Canada. I think oh yeah, because I had a house in Canada that was having issue with roommates. So I was at a time where I wanted to get rid of everything that troubled my mind. So I wanted to sell my house, and then I managed to sell it that summer. And then I bought my dream. At the time, I was a really obsessed rock climber still, even if I took break in the Spanish spiritual journey to immerse myself in yoga and meditation. I had the dream to climb. I already climbed the biggest mountain, rock climbing mountain in North America, and I wanted to rock climb for 10 years the biggest rock mountain in South America, which is in Patagonia. So my dream was to sell my house, buy a nice van, modify it to make it home with the office so I could write and then live in it, and drive all the way south from Canada to the south tip of Argentina, and then climb my dream mountain. And so I did that. I started becoming frugarian in India, and throughout my whole journey from Canada to Argentina, I was also eating only fruit. 99%. Sometimes I would crave a cake or ice cream, or if I would be invited to some people I would meet along the way, I would never refuse a meal. And then eventually I thought I would live this lifestyle forever. I was happy. I thought I would just buy land, park my van, and add fruit tree to live self-sufficiently for free forever. But eventually I got sick of driving after I climbed the mountain, and I sold the van. And then I was supposed to go to Canada, but then realized that last minute, just before clicking to buy my ticket, I had the glimpse. I was like, wait a minute, it's March. I think it's cold in Canada in March. And then I bailed last minute, and then instead book a ticket half an hour later to Thailand, where a really good friend of mine was staying for a long term. And then I didn't crave meat. The only meat that I ever craved during those 7.5 years, for some reason, was fried chicken. I love steak, I love every meat before, but during my spiritual journey, I never craved any other meat than fried chicken. Every time I would see it, I would just like be obsessed about it, and if I see it, I would crave it. But I most of the time I was isolated in my own bubble in my van, in nature, only riding away from civilization, so I didn't have any craving. But once every 2 weeks, I would need to go buy fruit and fill up on water, and I would end up in town, and then craving would come back. But then I knew it would last like an hour or two, and then it would disappear in the mountain, and I would be fine. But when I arrived in Thailand,
for those of you who haven't been, it's on every corner.
Every 100 meter at the most, there's a street vendor selling meat, and you can smell it throughout the street. And for 3 weeks, I resisted the smell. I was craving it, and I felt really bad, because the thing is that you become subtly really arrogant in your own spiritual journey, thinking that you're better than others because you can eat less than others. And even just to clarify, I was definitely much skinnier than I am today, but mainly because I was also in calorie deficit. I never labeled myself as having eating disorder, but I was just really obsessed with being efficient with my energy. So most people don't know, but I do not believe that we need 3 meals a day and sleep 8 hours a day. This is for the model. Is the model that's necessary for the average person that's living a 9-to-5 life and wasting energy because of ejaculation, of overthinking, over absorbing conditioning, overworking themselves, and having stress and anxiety of life that make us waste our energy. And throughout this spiritual journey, I become really skilled at understanding where was the leak of my energy and stopping the leak, so I became more efficient with my energy, which I became so efficient that I think the most efficient way I ate, I was for the whole, at least for almost 9-10 years of my life, I only slept 4 hour a night, at least 99% of the time. And before that, before my first spiritual journey, I slept like everyone else. I slept at least 8 hours, and if I was stoned, I could sleep 10 hours easily. But something shifted when I went into it. Also, didn't have like serious relationship for more than a month during that whole time, so I was really focused on myself. But with our relationship, things changed, and not for there's pros and cons, but what I'm trying to get is that we don't need food because our body needs food. We need energy. So food is only one way to receive that source of energy. And there's other source of energy. Our phone works with battery, and you charge it to an outlet that's powered whatever by the grid, and that brings energy to the phone, and that's how it works. And for human, most of us cannot charge themselves from a battery or from the grid, and so food becomes our main source of energy. And as much as it is believed in advanced spirituality that there's other way to power ourselves from a different source than food, which I don't want to go in details in this video. There's many ways which this energy that we absorb is wasted abundantly because we're inefficient of how we live our life. And some of them, the main one is ejaculating too often, eating the wrong food like processed food, meat, or food that are hard to digest. Digestive system is like also a huge source for energy leaking. Overthinking, like the brain is a giant computer, and if you think for doing something that is useful, that's one thing, but if you're thinking because you cannot stop yourself from thinking, then it's a waste. The people who overthink, the monkey mind, is a wasteful source of our energy. Breathing, there's the most efficient ways from the diaphragm, the belly breathing, and most people in society breathe from the lungs, and most people, including myself before, we don't believe there's problems, like you're breathing fine, but there's research that has been done that breathing from the belly is at least 25 to 30% more efficient than breathing from the lungs, meaning that you need 25 to 30% less energy to breathe and bring oxygen to your brain and to your body from breathing through the belly.
Plus, not to mention that it shifts your body from sympathetic mode, which is shallow breathing, where you have stress hormones flooding your body's functioning in a more anxious, ready to respond to threats mode, whereas breathing in the belly is where you can rest, digest, and actually heal, because all non-essential functions of the body are paused when we're not in this mode. So just your very act of breathing changes your body being able to use its full functionality.
And all this information is scientifically backed up, not from mainstream source of information.
This is pretty mainstream. There's a lot of mainstream knowledge
sure,
in this.
It comes out, but you can go a lot deeper in every aspect of which we're sharing. We could do more specific video eventually about it, which I would love to do.
Let us know if you feel any interest about a specific topic.
It's worth, if you have health issue, it's worth digging into it. There's a lot of healing that can happen by just changing the way we breathe, the way we eat, the way we live our life. A lot of the modern medicine world, the Western world, is based on treating symptoms, and most of the reason for chronic illness come from just bad lifestyle and bad habits, which you can fix from reframing the way you've been sleeping,
living your
eating.
life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I've been obsessed with how I was wasting my energy and focus on minimizing my waste, and I was living fine, really healthy. I climb. I think I'm the only one in the world, as far as I know, who climb a world-class mountain solely on a fruit diet. I went up the mountain only in the approach because the way it works is like you can drive to a certain level and then eventually you have to hike to the base camp, and after that climb the summit. And so I arrive at base camp, which is like a 10-kilometer trek, like I don't know, 2 kilometer elevation with 17 kg of fruit. And that didn't include all my climbing gear, my winter clothes, my camping gear, what else I had? Camping gear, winter gear, climbing gear, and 17 kg of fruit. I think I went up that first day with 50 kilos. So I was above 100 pounds heavy, and I was at the tiniest I ever been in my life. I'm only like, usually now I'm about 70 kg. I think back then I was closer to like 55 kg, maybe a little bit more.
55.
Yeah, I was really thin. But I was like, I already had like 2 decades of rock climbing experience. So imagine you're an experienced rock climber, you're super fit, and you have...
This is like your entire weight.
And you have like 30-pound weight less to fight gravity. It was so easy because most of the time, like before I rock climbed the big mountain, I traveled throughout. The last time I climbed in the United States, in Mexico, and a little bit in Costa Rica. But in between, for months and months, I didn't climb. And the first time, it's usually really difficult. But because I keep myself fit, I was training every day, doing yoga, meditation. My practice was 4 or 5 hours every day, constantly, day after day. When I reached the rock again, and it took me, I had a hard time to adapt for elevation because it's high in altitude. So for this, I was not used to because most of the time I follow sea level. But when I acclimatized on the rock, I felt so much lighter. And for sure, lifting almost 100 pounds of material, it took me a lot longer. And when I arrived at the top, people were like, how did you manage to carry a bag that heavy? And I knew that like most people, there was maybe 50 people at base camp, and I probably had more. If you combine all the fruit and vegetable that those 50 people had, I probably had more just on my own because it was the only food.
It would be efficient to carry,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And my goal was just be able to stay at least 10 days up the mountain with the 17 kg. I managed to stay 9 days. I managed to supply my needs for 9 days because at first I felt really ill. I felt really weak. And I just realized, I thought first it was the elevation. Then I realized it's just because I didn't spend that much energy when I was just meditating and then training, just doing push-up. So I started eating more fruit. And I think when I was, when I was frugivore, I ate an average 7 fruit. When I was in the mountain, rock climbing, I ate 10 to 11 fruit. And so I jumped it up to maybe 50%, and then I was fine. And I did. And also throughout I also had dry fruit, which I dried throughout my whole road trip before arriving to Patagonia, which helped me to also reduce my weight. But overall, mainly I was eating fresh fruit. And when before the mountain, I was just for 10 months, I was just drinking fruit juice. I think my calorie intake was between 400 to 500 calories a day for those 10 months. And what I want to get with this is that I never felt I was mentally ill or had eating disorder. I just really felt really attuned to my energy level, to what I needed, and I never felt any lack of anything. And I feel super functional.
Disorder, I think it comes from why you're doing it.
I'm just trying to clarify for the audience, just in case that people wouldn't believe that it would be healthy or not, or normal for somebody to be able to live at such calorie deficit. And
so then I think it's important to clarify, as someone who has struggled with an eating disorder, that what I see from you is the difference of where it comes from. Because just saying, oh, classify myself as someone with an eating disorder. The difference is you're not doing it to lose weight.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely didn't have the desire to. Actually, as a man, it's not. It was sad for me to see my muscle. Like I've never been really overweight in my life. Sometimes I gain a little bit of weight, but most of the time I've been really athletic. So losing my muscle mass was a challenge. But then I realized that for the moment being, it was not what I was my priority. And then it was something, and when I felt that I was at least as strong, just thinner, then I didn't mind anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was never challenging. It was not something that I was like, I find difficult to do, because every year, at least every year, I was doing at least one challenging fast. So either no food, no water, and eventually I end up to no. First, it was a dry fast, so just no food. Eventually, for the last 3 years, I was doing
You said that wrong.
water fast. The first 4 years, it was a water fast, so only consuming water. And eventually, the last 3 years, I was doing fast that
Dry
didn't
fast.
include water. And I can go deeper into other videos about it. But those fasts gave me new power, new level, new ability to be extremely comfortable with hunger. So much so that even until today, many years later, it's really rare that I feel hungry like I used to be, or like normal people do. I feel sometimes weakness and drop in energy, but I don't feel ghrelin, which is I don't know if it's a hormone or something in there that make you feel that you want to eat food.
In your stomach.
Yeah,
that sensation.
the sensation of feeling you want to eat. I even until today, I consider myself as a intermittent faster. Even since I kind of label myself as out of the spiritual journey, I've been only eating my food in a 4-hour window for at least 95% of the time, minimum. And most of the time I eat outside of that window for social reason, to interact with other people. So there's still benefit that are long lasting, even if I'm not fully in the spiritual journey anymore. And the one that remain is my ability to need a lot less food. Before that spiritual journey, I was actually eating minimum 4 meals a day, 4 heavy meals a day. I was working on construction and climbing almost every day, but also a heavy weed smoker, which just naturally make you feel hungry all the time. And then to finish the cycle, the reason is that when I end up in Thailand, I felt guilty because I smelled meat. And after 3 weeks, I met somebody that I label as my Baba, just a guy dressing like a Baba, which is I don't know how to label it, a spiritual old man in India, but he was not Indian. He obviously spent many decades in India, he was dressing like them. But he told me the problem was not for me because I was craving meat, but because I thought that there was a problem from me craving meat. And something shifted. I felt really resonating with his more advanced wisdom, and I didn't know where that voice came from. What I want to share with the people who are on the spiritual journey is that no matter if I went into veganism, I didn't went because of noise in my mind or noise from somebody else's mind impacting my mind. I was not influenced. I went because I was following a voice. And the reason why I went to eat meat again eventually, even if it was a little bit at the beginning, a little bit more eventually, was not because of the noise outside of me or the voice inside of me that craved meat. It was just a calling. I felt that I didn't have anything to prove. I felt that it didn't came from a need, but it came from me wanting to start dancing more seriously and not being able to lift my dancing partner because I was too thin, and I was I was not able to eat more than my meal a day, and I was not able to gain enough weight with only one vegan meal a day. So even if I was eating really heavy stuff in my vegan meal, one meal a day I was not able to bulk up. And I didn't feel I was wanting to bulk up for superficial reason, but I was feeling really passionate about this new passion, which is dancing. And so I decided to try keto diet, non-vegan keto diet for a month to see how I felt, and it just felt natural. I didn't feel ill or anything, and after a month I just felt good enough that I keep going. And most of the time, unless I eat with you because you're vegan, or with some friend, sometimes I eat vegan, but most of the time I would consider eating meat almost every day. And most of the time I feel really good about it. And my skin's still clear. The only thing that is a no-go for me, which I feel ill or on balance, is sugar. And so this is the one I have problem with my teeth for a different reason, and overall it just doesn't do me well. So I sometimes eat it, but most of the time I avoid it.
And we saw something amazing, well, difficult to acknowledge the other day, that eating one spoonful of sugar can lower your immune system's effectiveness for the day by 50%.
Yeah.
One spoon.
The key to health is to control your craving, and as much as natural sugar in fruit is really necessary, processed sugar that we add through food, in Asian food there's a lot of sugar. They use it as a spice, but also like in American diet, it's in every processed food just so it tastes good and become addictive. And
even
that's
the non-processed foods. You'll like go and you think you're just buying strawberries. Or maybe not strawberries, but pretty similar.
Strawberry? What do you mean?
You think that you're buying like dried fruit and you're like, oh well, this is just dried fruit.
Because it's coated
and
for
then,
preservation.
Well, sugar
Yeah.
as a preservative.
Yeah. And it tricks people. Or even honey. Honey is like a natural sugar, but because it's so concentrated, like maple syrup, people switch from white sugar to honey, and then they like tank a whole jar in like a day or two. It's like the craving and the addiction to sugar is really something that, if we're really conscious about health, it's an addiction that is at least as harmful as cigarette or drugs. So it's nothing wrong if you know you can consume it in moderation, but when it becomes a huge part of your staple diet, then this is when chronic diseases and illness are overtaking your health and shifting the balance on the wrong side. 30 minutes already.
Yeah. So, what would you say is your current stance on veganism? Since that's the topic we started out with.
Yes, I went far, like my mind goes.
That was an important ground to cover, because I think when you're making the decision of how to feed your body, it's really like what helped me get out of this space of this righteousness of like whatever diet that I'm choosing is to actually just connect with asking questions with like what feels the best to your body and where is your food coming from, and making your conscious decision whatever that is that you choose.
I've been always really conscientious about the environment. So the environment is something that I'm really focused to take care of. And I understand the debate that consuming meat has a stronger impact than in general than consuming a vegan diet. But at the same time, because of globalization, because most of our food usually, most often doesn't come from around the neighbor.
Local.
There's a lot of negative externality, negative impact that is affected by consuming vegan in a global way. What I mean by this is that most of the staple food in veganism include avocado. Avocado has been proven to, because it's so in demand in most places, there's places who are starting to grow avocado that were not natural to grow. And because avocado tree are sucking so much water from groundwater, from the ground reserve of the land, then it's drying river and other crop where neighborhood never had any issue with water, and they start having issue because corporation from United States and Germany and other rich countries are coming to buy land in the place that's really sunny because you need a lot of sun, but are affecting a beautiful land that never had issue with water, and they're just growing avocado tree, and eventually everything is dying in the valley, and the avocado tree and everything. They're affecting. What I'm trying to get is they are directly affecting the supply water of the land where they are harvesting non-natural avocado tree. I don't know that.
So you can actually watch much more about this. There's a movie on Netflix about it. I think it's called Avocado Wars. And it basically is destroying the environment because of this overconsumption and this hyperfixation. Same thing with almonds, for instance.
Yes.
With being vegan, there's so much nut milk, and this takes so much water, and then it's grown in such bulk places, and then of course it's grown somewhere far away, shipped long distances to you. So actually they say the best thing you can do for the environment is to eat local and seasonal. So local
And seasonal is the way to live the less impactful. And if you're against torturing animal, I totally understand. But what I'm not pro is to believe. I think that the only belief, I always say this, the only belief that is wrong is to believe that your own belief should be believed by everyone else. And this is dogmatism, is trying to impose your idea into somebody that's not open or not ready to receive your idea. It's okay to live based on your own conviction, your own belief, but it's not okay to force it and make people ashamed of themselves because they're living a different lifestyle. If you're like, we live in the conscious community in Thailand, and I know dozens and not dozens of long-term, multi-decade vegan that have dropped out from veganism. And if you're a dropout and one time in your life you put someone to shame when you were vegan because they were not ready to be vegan, then you're a victim of being arrogant at that moment. I don't know if it makes sense. It's like, I grew out of veganism, and I remember a time where I thought that everyone should have been. And I see now other people who are in this journey, full on veganism, they discover it, they're preaching for it, and even they're being there for 5 or 10 years or even longer, they're angry at people who are not ready to be vegan. If one day they have health issue or just feel that they want to eat fish or they want to eat something that is not vegan, then you realize that the whole time you were preaching your veganism to other people who weren't ready, then it means you were arrogant for no reason. And that's the problem. It's like, the journey is personal to each one of us, and I'm pretty sure the people who are vegan today, like me, are the people. If I was vegan and back in the day where I wasn't, being brainwashed wouldn't have allowed me to become vegan faster. It's okay to like make passive propaganda.
And it's important to talk about these things.
Yes.
There are certain things that really are important to discuss and to talk about and to bring awareness to. And especially just like consciously looking at your impact and like you say with the environment, but also like on animals' well-being.
And on culture, on people. I've traveled to Central America, and one of the staple food of Central America is quinoa, and other grain as well, which are really local, which people who are local have consumed throughout history. And because those grain are become so hype in the vegan world, in rich country, in the Western world, and the price has gone up, everything is exported from those local region to the Western world where the producer and exporter can make more money. And the local are left with low quality of their product. Sometimes none of the product is left. Then they cannot afford it because the local price is too high, and then they have to like consume rice, which is cheaper. that has to be imported from Asia to Central America, only because it's the cheapest grain to feed themselves. And so that's what happened with globalization, and that there's many aspects of that, like cashew, which is also really staple in the vegan diet for dessert, and just as a nut, because it's so high, most people don't know, but the way it's produced, you can look on YouTube, 99% of the labor force come from women, and you have to peel the shell out of it, and it contains a poison similar to poison ivy that burns your finger. And over a few weeks, few months, your finger, if you're, because they cannot wear gloves because they're too slow and they're being paid by production, is the same way as climbing Everest without gloves. It's fully frostbitten. It's not from cold, but from the poison, and it's irreversible damage. And this is a consequence that the vegan movement have exponentially increased over time, because production cannot be done slow. Vegan wants also their food cheap. It's a reality. Everyone want high caloric food, including vegan, and they want good tasty food, and they want at the cheapest price possible. So the demand is there, and then there's no way than to put pressure on the people who are producing it, either avocado, quinoa, almond, and cashew. And there's many more like this that creates huge imbalance in the global scale, only because we're enforcing a certain diet over the local and the seasonal one, which is believed to be the most sustainable way of feeding yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a kind of creates a little bit of a organized message of the whole journey and the personal inquiry of consumption and how to feed yourself and your impact. And yeah, not to say that we support factory farming in any
No, of course
shape or
not.
form, and that's an important thing to discuss, and especially
At the end of the day, it's good to have good value. It's good to feel it within yourself. It's good to take information from outside if you're open to it, and to share with others which are open to you. If you didn't like anything, it's easy for you to just click out and watch something else. But at the end of the day, it's not good to brainwash others. So for me, veganism is a good thing if you feel the call. Spirituality, meditation is a good thing if you feel the calling. If you don't feel the calling, then it'll always be there for you when you're ready. Yes, for me, it was part of my journey. And as much as I enjoy eating vegan most of the time, at this moment in time, I feel that my diet outside of being vegan is efficient, is what I feel right in my body right now. And that's why I go for it. Anything more to add?
um, I
Something you're hiding?
I guess I have a little bit of feelings with the way that you
Oh,
say.
you feel triggered. Tell me.
No, not triggered,
No?
but just we're sending this message out there to people, and I feel like it brings this sort of spirituality of it's very self-centered. What is your journey and your path? And it doesn't look at the fact that you just talking about changing animal suffering and factory farming isn't something that really makes that much of a difference. And especially like eating fish in the way that we're clearing out our oceans rapidly and getting close to like near extinction because of the way that we're producing this meat. And so there is a certain level of like, you should tune into your body, but there is still a certain level of awareness that I feel like to bring. And as much as it is your own personal path, because I mean, at least from my perspective, I feel like it's your own personal path because it can be more damaging and detrimental to take steps that you're not ready to take, or take steps that feel out of alignment with your truth. And one of the things that was really easy for me to not feel, I guess, uncomfortable with you eating meat is because I know that you are doing it from a place of consciously listening to your body and how does it feel, what serves you. It's not out of, oh, I can't break this habit because I'm comfortable in it, or because, I mean, yeah, someone's suffering, but it's not me. Actually, you have a really deep respect for the environment and a deep reflection on the life and death cycle. But I do think there is an importance to, like, not just look at the self-centered effect, as though many vegans I know, people have been so dedicated and of course have gone to protests even aggressively, and eventually their health, they're not able to, I mean, I know people who have gone to nutritionist after nutritionist that said there's no way I am eating meat, and their bodies needed it. So I do think there is an individual path with it, and of course going beyond your pace of like feeling pressure to do something, it just kicks back, because if you don't have that calling from within you, how can you, there's a lot that comes up with that. But yeah, it is important to realize and be aware of how you're infecting others, the environment, and the fact that factory farming exists to produce this much meat at this scale, which we're consuming as a society. And with that in mind, that also goes hand in hand with how much you're eating per day. So with the obesity crisis and all this overconsumption, of course, and food waste, oh, don't even get me started on like not only over consuming, but the food that we try to consume but don't and just throw out.
And so if you're, that's what I'm trying to point at, is that everything in the universe, including our planet, follow what I call cycles and create balance. Those cycles are always there to create balance, and human is the only one that has a tendency to disturb cycles and create imbalance. And as much as I have no doubt there's people who are feeling remorse or pain and suffering from seeing or knowing that an animal has been killed to feed some people, I personally never felt, I felt it in my spiritual journey at some level. I remember one time I was eating at a restaurant in India with a girl, and there was a mosquito on my arm, and I just slapped it. And then she just jumps like, you killed a mosquito. And I felt so bad at that moment and so guilty that for a whole year I didn't kill a single mosquito. And eventually that feeling drifted away. And the same happened with fish. And for a different occasion, I had a calling, and for at least 10 years I didn't eat fish. But at the same time, my dad, just so to put context, was a butcher in earlier when I was younger, at least. And so I helped him, I worked with him when I was 13, 14, 15. So I was surrounded with meat earlier age, and I even participate in the ceremony where we killed a goat, a live goat. And I really felt deep sorrow in the moment of the killing, and that sorrow lasted, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. And then I was the one who started to open and clean the goat with a knife, because I was the main one who had experience among all the people that was there. And life is sacred. Life is sacred and should be honored and be protected. But I don't have this feeling or mentality that all life should be preserved, like a true vegan is. And if I didn't have this experience, just like believing in a different religion than your religion, then I feel that there's room for everyone to have their own religion, their own belief, their own habit, their own way of living life. And if yours include not killing any animal, and for me it doesn't, I think there's room for both of us to coexist. Two people of different religion coexisting in peace together. In India, most people uh, believe that cow is holy, and so you're not allowed to eat beef. And then the Muslim, for different reasons, don't eat pork. But other culture, they sell it to the other, and then the Buddhists, the Hindu and the Muslim are living together, and it's okay. It's like, I'm giving you my cow, I cannot eat it, but they're giving to the neighbor who can eat it, and they coexist in peace with different belief. And I think this is where we have to live together. It's like, do you feel it? No, then if you don't feel the belief of somebody else, then you don't need to adapt the belief of somebody else. And I feel as long as it creates balance, peace, and harmony, then it's good. And I because I experienced veganism, I see all the health benefit, the environmental benefit. But just like we said, because of the imbalance it can create on the macro level, economically and environmentally, not only consuming avocado, cashew, and whatever I said, it's over consuming. It's like you can live an extravagant life and be vegan and having a really, really heavy footprint impact on the planet by over consuming, over traveling, over wasting.
Always buying imported products.
And just eating meat at the local meat shop that's coming from the farm next door, eating eggs organic from the chicken are running around, and living really modestly and have a really much lower footprint impact on the world. It doesn't remove the fact that if I see a dog getting beat up by someone, I will intervene. It's not that I don't have feeling toward animal cruelty. It's just that I don't have negative feeling. I have feeling, I just don't have negative feeling that animal should be or not be okay to be killed for human consumption. There's good way, conscious way that create balance, and there's bad way, like the modern way of doing it. And this I'm against also.
Yeah, I feel like that is, for me, the space that's debatable. That's the place
Which one is debatable?
So that's the place where you can coexist with different religions. Do you think we should be able to eat animals or not? Do you, how does that feel in your body? But the method of over-consuming, factory farming, and wasting, especially animal products that you're consuming, that I feel like is not an awareness of, like you say, there's a quote that you say, or not quote, something you say all the time that comes from you, which is, if everyone did what you did, would it be okay?
That's my definition of morality, between what's right and wrong.
So with that in mind, just the concept of mindlessly letting animals suffer without having a conscious understanding of what impact you're making, I think that is where the line is, just with a child, you step in to create some sort of just understanding. And that, I think, is one of the benefits of veganism, where people are discussing this and are trying to say, okay, we have our differences, and that's okay. Who knows what my body may need in the future? I know that I feel very good with myself right now and how I feel. But just bringing in that space where, okay, but this is on the further range of out of bounds. This isn't any more harmonious or coexisting, we're destroying the ocean floor and aspects like this.
So this is wrong because it creates imbalance. If we're draining the ocean, we are polluting the atmosphere with too much methane. That's creating imbalance, and that
or
is something
unnecessary suffering for the animals. It's not just, okay, I eat meat and I'm okay with animals to fuel me, but just the unnecessary suffering, completely unnecessary. That I think is important to touch upon.
50 minutes.
So honestly, I think this is our style. I think we have a lot to talk about, and I actually
we have different
really-
opinion.
Different opinions.
And
Look at us, we're
we-
talking
and-
harmoniously.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we might not agree with each other, but it's just to share different viewpoint. And I think there's like a clarity in the way that we perceive our own opinion and the way we can express it. And that's what we just want to share with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really actually enjoy hearing more about your experience and your perspectives and your story, which you have such rich life experiences. And
And you have too.
I hope so.
All right, so this is it for today. If you like, just like.
You can subscribe. We'll make more content like this. On
and then
different
comment
topics.
if you want us to deepen the subject that you find interesting that we just went superficially in this video, or anything you would like us to talk, and then we will see if it's worth making a video about it.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon. Ciao.
Bye.
Hey,
So?
be serious.
If we're watching this, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications.